Hornady Subsonic. Wheel it over here. Inside of this Gritter Gear hard case is everything I needed for the day. I'm really pleased. Well, almost everything. All right, there's one more thing that I needed. This Gritter Gear D2 blade. This is a Scout blade. Really cool, but I'm not really talking about that right at the moment. More interested in what's inside. So inside, I have the new BCA bolt action pistol. This happens to be a 338 ARC. And my friends over at Scope Warehouse sent out a Shepherd optic. This is their 1-8. It's got the R mill in it. I've got some Hornady ammo. I'm going to be shooting a little Hornady black and some of their subsonic line. I do have a Rangecraft chrono because we're going to chrono it. I've got a Tracked Optics 22 power, it's actually 22 to 45 power spotter. Really cool spotter. That's going to give me a great image today. Can fit all of this inside of this hard case. I've got a sling by X-Tar. Thanks to X-Tar for sending that out. And an anechoic 35 caliber flow-through style design can. I'm going to be using all of this, and everything I needed for the day fit inside of this one case. It's really cool with these modern little bolty folders and pistols, whatever you're running, but this whole thing fits in there so well. It's a super clean fit, and I just hate carrying multiple bags, so when I can carry one thing, it's really nice I can get away with this. All right, out of those Hornady subsonics, they're not going to give great SDs, but you can see that they are truly subsonic. They're relatively quiet, and I'm not using a long can right now. I'm using a short can with a flow-through style cap. It's a 35 caliber cap, actually. And I would say it's definitely hearing safe in open areas underneath this hood that I was under. It's a little noisy, but not too bad. I actually didn't feel uncomfortable. Certainly hunting qualified for quiet. And looking at those SDs, 18, average of 1,031 feet per second with those Hornady subsonics, 307 grains. So when it comes to the 338 ARC, I think subsonic performance is going to be something people are very interested in. And here's what I was able to achieve at about 110 yards with Palmetto 300 grain, which is, it's on the edge. A couple of those were definitely over past subsonic into supersonic. So these groups are not crazy good. Got about 3.5 inches, probably hunting efficient at 100 yards. And then this one looks to be like 2. Yeah, just a little under 2, probably 1.75 inches. I think I need to mess around a little bit more with some of the ammo. Usually BCA barrels have done really well for me, and I think it's the ammo more so that I need to play around with, but you probably can't do worse than what I'm looking at right here. I think any other ammo that you pick is going to do better, and with the Hornady stuff, I was seeing about 1.25 inches at 100 yards. Let's go ahead and load this up with some 175 grainers. I've got a 2/3 size IDPA there. I've got a hit indicator on it, but it's had most of the lights blown out of it. That's what you get when you have friends who aren't very precise in their shooting. They shoot the lights out. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do about 5. It's either 4.5 or 5 mils at this distance for the 175 grainers, which is not terribly different than 300 blackout, but the payload is better, which is really cool. Let's see what this BCA 338 ARC can do with the Shepherd R-Mill 1-8. And actually, first let's throw one at a clay, see where that lands, right under that target, and then I'll work up to the target. Ooh, that was close. Just to the right. That was just to the right. That really wasn't far off. It was a pretty good guess. I mean, it was an educated guess, but it was a pretty good guess. Let's go. I'm going to hold a couple of tenths to the left. It's not too windy. A couple tenths to the left, and I'm going to go with that 4.5 one more time on the silhouette. Okay, ejection was just fine on those. No concerns there. Looks like I probably need to do a little data work on this guy to be really sure where these are landing. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a better camera angle here for you. How about right there? So at 330, 4.5 seems to be pretty true. And depending on the wind, that's going to be the hold there. Shouldn't be too different though, and this is still tight, but of course not hot at all. It's really a nice cool can. I'll run the rest of whatever I have in this magazine on that target, and then we'll try out some subsonics and see what I can do. That's really fun. I'm going to tell you that the recoil impulse is not bad. It's like a gas blowback PCC. It's really not bad at all, and it still has some decent kinetic energy. I'm noticing that it's moving the target around. It's a very thick target. I can hear it. Sounds good. In fact, just one time, I'm going to take my ears off and shoot this supersonic load. I got one bullet left of that 175 grain with the can on. Again, it's a 35 caliber can. It's a 338 bullet, but it's not exactly sneaking past. There's plenty of room, but it fills up the can more than some other projectiles would. And with that flow-through cap, it's not going to be quite as quiet. But if it can be sufficient for hunting, because I hunt with supersonics, that would be really cool. Ejections all looked good, and it was, I'm not going to say it's officially hearing safe, but it was very quiet to my ears. No complaints about that. And the R-Mill got it done. Nice image, good field of view, even though the sun's going down right now. The image is good with contrast, colors, and I was able to get that reticle exactly where I want it to. It's got a nice little cross. 175 grainers. Let's see what we can do at a little past 100. Always got to remind myself that you can't run the bolt slow on this. It just doesn't work very nicely. You need to run it with authority, which is just fine. I have lots of guns like that. Okay. It's about a 2-inch group, so that's pretty consistent with what I'm seeing. Is it's about a 2 MOA gun. Considering it's coming out of an 8-inch barrel, and I'm not shooting match ammo, I'm just shooting decent ammo. It's AAC. It's decent ammo. I suppose that's about what the expectation should be out of a pistol. Maybe out of a rifle length with a regular stock and maybe a lighter trigger, some of those other components. Maybe I would expect more for performance-wise. And perhaps the can diminishes just a little bit. It's possible that that stuff is happening, but I'm looking at this gun as something that's more like a fun deer hunting gun for close range, pistol work on deer. Something wieldy, foldy, light and compact. It still packs a punch and can suppress reasonably well. Even with the supersonics, it suppresses reasonably well, and it's doing that just fine. All right, I'm going to switch over to some 300 grain. It doesn't advertise as subsonic, but it is. Like, it's 1,000 feet per second, so unless it's 100 feet per second off, it should still be subsonic. With the 300 grain, that's a wallop. That's a lot of kinetic energy, even at 1,000 feet per second. A couple things I could probably do to improve the experience with the gun, shoot it better, get better groups, if I really want to be, a little more picky about that. I think I'd probably look for a way to reduce trigger weight. This isn't a bad trigger. I don't shoot a lot of mil-spec triggers anymore. So if anything, I'm kind of the weak component with that. But a slightly lighter trigger would probably help. That's something that I think could be added for me. And then maybe in January, just making this an SBR and putting a regular stock on it at that point. Resting it on your cheek as a brace, or resting your arm out, not gonna get the best groups doing that sort of thing. And then I could probably bump it up to a 1 to 10. I actually think the capability is there. I shot this out to 600 yards, if you saw some of that footage, and in nicer weather at 600 yards, the capability is there. And I think with a 1 to 10 that's got ED lenses, something like that, the capability will be shown better than I am with a 1 to 8 and HD lenses. So just something to consider. And then obviously match ammo. Got to be shooting match ammo. So a couple of things, if you're like going to be a group snob about this and you're looking at my group saying that's not good enough, well, okay, that's fine. You can do things to improve this. I'm just saying stock from the factory. There's a couple things that you could change and modify for not a lot of money, or you could leave it as is. And I still think you're going to be hunting effective for small game critters with a little bit of practice. I'll even shrink the groups that I'm getting now. Also, not shooting in sub-zero temperatures. It's one thing I always forget about. That makes a difference. That's reasonably quiet. Remember, I don't have a caliber specific end cap on here right now, so it's just slightly noisier than it could be if you had a caliber specific end cap. It hits hard though. I'll say one thing that's really fun about shooting something this small is it has some energy. It feels to me like it's hitting harder than a lot of 300 blackout. I got to run the numbers later and double check that. But it feels like it, looking at that target swing. That really moves it. It's a big, thick plate. It's a heavy plate it's moving around. That's pretty good. I don't know if I'll hit that again. That's a tiny target. I think that's a 6-inch target. Yeah, I think that one's a 6. If I can do that with the subs, I'm actually going to be pretty happy at 200. Well, pretty close, actually. Give it one more. You should be able to hear it if I hit it. Just a little high. Okay. So that 300 grain, that's probably not the most predictable, most reliable bullet to run out of here, but if I was shooting on like a 10-inch target, probably would have hit it every time. I think the 6-inch was just a little bit small for those subs. Supers seem to be more predictable and more reliable, and especially the Hornady Supersonics. Those have been good at 300 and 600 yards. Pretty reliable for, I would say, like 2 MOA size targets. A brief opinion on the cartridge. I think 338 is fun. I would have to mess around with other cans or caliber specific end caps to say if I think it can be as quiet as 300 blackout. I mean, maybe it can. Maybe there's more ammo that I need to try out. Right now, I think it's a little noisier, and I think it's going to be a little noisier than 300 blackout to some degree with an 8-inch barrel. That's just my opinion. The physics of this should say that they could get really close or be the same, or I don't know. I'm shooting a bigger projectile. Some people would probably say this should be quieter. Just depends on the loading, I think. I like it. I don't think it's going to become a long-range cartridge for me. I like to take 300 blackout pretty far, but even that, you know, I've got a really tight shooting, a very tight shooting BCA 300 blackout. For whatever reason, that semi-auto 300 blackout it shoots lights out with 125 grainers and good match ammo. This is not going to keep up with that rifle. This is a pistol. That's a rifle. It's not going to keep up with that, and I don't think the cartridge from factory ammo is going to keep up with where 300 blackout ammo is at right now. Maybe with some more development and time, I'll see some improvement with the factory or match ammo, and then I'd be happy to play around with it with higher magnification and maybe a rifle length instead of a pistol length, and you know, better trigger and all that sort of thing. Right now, I think the cartridge is a nice intermediate cartridge. It still packs a real good punch. I can tell it can be fairly quiet. I can do some varminting, small game with it if it's just pest control. You know, I can throw some subs at it. That'd be kind of cool. Hit them with a 300 grain bullet and this tiny little package. I mean, this is probably the most fun thing about it for the cartridge to me, is I'm shooting this tiny barrel, you know, a sub 10-inch barrel with a sub 8-inch can. I'm still getting reasonable performance. I've got a mil-spec trigger. I can fit 9 rounds comfortably in this magazine. This happens to be one from, I don't remember who made this one. Oh, it's a CMMG mag, yeah. I think it's a 400 Legend magazine. And reliability for loading has been 100%. I've never had an issue loading around, to my knowledge. There's some extraction there that's a little bit weak on my part. If you go real slow, it's not like a traditional bolt gun. You know, it's a little bit different how this interfaces, so that's something to think about with the cartridge and this platform. The bolt itself really smoothed out.
I don't know what it was, but after about 30, 40 rounds, something like that, this thing smoothed out to the point where it's really easy to run forward and back. When I first got out of the package, I worked it a little bit to make sure any rough metal was wearing off, you know, smoothing out. So there is some of that that's gone on, and that's kind of predictable. I wasn't surprised by that at all. But you want to do that. Run that bolt a whole lot of times. Shoot it, you know, shoot it a good amount of time, and then it seems to smooth out a lot. And I'm not having a lot of trouble with that. I'm just needing to remember that when it comes to extraction, I do have to be very intentional with the extraction. I can't slowly run the bolt back and catch my brass. I'm going to have to, you know, kind of give it a good firm back and forward, which is actually kind of true of all the bolt action uppers I've ever run. They don't tend to extract perfectly when you go really slow. Sometimes it doesn't actually extract, it'll just kind of leave it in the chamber area with multiple brands. I've noticed that. So I think it's kind of inherent to the design, just something to think about, that you're not going to be silently sliding this guy back unless you're extracting the brass yourself with your fingers. Most of the time you're going to give it a good slap back and slap forward, and it's running fine. I don't really have issues with the gun. I think it's really affordable. Getting into 338 ARC, obviously BCA has probably one of the most affordable packages out there. You can get a really affordable optic like the Shepherd optic from Scope Warehouse. Anechoic makes awesome cans. Throw in a little bipod and a brace, and you can go out to a few, maybe several hundred yards. I've shot it out to 600 yards on 2/3 size IDPA targets with good reliability. And as long as you're shooting supersonics, I think that's going to be fine. Subsonics, let's say 200 yards and in for plinking. Hunting, 100 yards and in.
All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. One last shout out to BCA for sending out this 338 pistol. Remember, it did not come with the brace, the can, the Picatinny on the bottom, bipod, or the optic. I've added those things, but otherwise it was basically a stock pistol the way you saw it here. And I really appreciate BCA. They have sent out a few things to the channel over the last couple of years. It's been a great partnership, and I've had some really good results with a good handful of their rifles and pistols. This one has been one of my favorites. It's my first real shorty folding pistol. I have some others that are, you know, maybe 10 or 12 inches, but this one in itself is just kind of unique. I like it, and I'm glad that it's functioning well, it's running well, and I'm getting reasonable results with factory non-match ammo. I want to give a quick shout out as well to Scope Warehouse. They sent out the Shepherd optic, and Anechoic Expressors sent out this 35L, or this is the 35 short rather. This is a great hunting can. I think it actually works nicely with this because it's so lightweight. If you're looking to get into a 338, this is probably a nice package to start with. Obviously, you could use a red dot, you could do close stuff with it, but I think this is a worthy package to have an LPVO of a 1-4, 1-6, 1-8 on, and to suppress. If you're going to get into a 338, you're going to grab one of the rifles or pistols from BCA. I highly suggest you take a look at Anechoic and maybe watch this video right here.